Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Too Many Men. My name is Alison Lucan, and I'm joined by two of the best, the brightest, the most fabulous women in the world, Sara Sivian and Shayna Goldman. We're going to check in with them because we're going to do this episode a little bit differently. Sara, how the hell are you?
My God, I'm hurting a little bit, guys. You know me, like I can drink, but last night I think I had three drinks, but the bartender was acting funky, and then he looks at me and he's like, "I'm really drunk." I was like, "What?" And I think he gave me like quadruple drinks because there's not much I remember about that hockey game. I had to rewatch it this morning,
You
and
know, they
Sam
think
Reinhart,
they're doing you a favor with
yeah,
that too. And it's like, I didn't ask for
no,
this.
I want to watch the game, and I did not. I did not. I watched it this morning, and Sam Reinhart did indeed score 4 goals. That's crazy.
Shayna, how are you?
I'm great. I'm hanging on by a thread here, but we're we're trucking along. I can't believe it's over, and I truly can't believe like I am excited for everything to like just stop. I've hit my point. I feel like every year when I see people be like, I can't wait for the offseason, I'm like, are you nuts? And now I'm like, no, I get it.
It's so real. It's so real. I know. All right. Well, again, we're not going to do a traditional Too Many Men episode here. We're just going to break down that Stanley Cup final. We'll return to our regularly scheduled format next week. But attention must be paid, of course, if you were paying attention, whether you actually comprehended it or not, if you're Team Shayna or Team Sara in terms of how last night went for you, who's to say? But Florida after a series that started in pretty spectacular, even nose-to-nose competition, Florida skates away with the last two games, one in Edmonton, one in Florida, and on home ice, 5-1 to seal their second straight Stanley Cup. Matthew Tkachuk suggesting dynasty, question mark. We're going to break down all the things, but I want to start at the end and then work backwards because I actually, y'all, while I was sitting there watching and I was taking notes on my phone. I never take notes on my phone, but I was taking notes on my phone because I want to get y'all's take on this. If you weren't watching the entire ceremony of the cup after, the pattern quickly emerged that after the cup was awarded, they made sure that everyone who was on the Panthers roster for whom this was their first cup got the cup and got to do their lap first before the veterans came. And at first I was like, well, that's really cool. But then if you watched the quote unquote vets, the guys who had been on last year's team, like there was such a different vibe to it, right? Like there was something, and I'm not trying to be like overly dramatic, but there was something really cool going on of you win your first cup, but your second cup, you kind of know how to enjoy it and you're really able to soak it in. And like the joy, the maturity of the joy felt different to me and cool in a way. Shayna, you're nodding your head. What did you think?
No, I fully agree. I think it started from Barkov getting the cup and skating it into the team, which is something more you see, right? Like international tournaments, like you win worlds for, the men, it hasn't been best on best, but like the women, right? They win worlds and they take the trophy to the rest of the team after everyone gets their medals and they all celebrate together. That moment, I thought, first of all, the camera work was excellent. Really appreciate that. And I'm someone that is very nitpicky about it, like the drones flying around after they all won and they're by the net. But I think it started with that and it showed like, we're like last time you get the cup and you probably have so much excitement and you do your lap immediately. And it was like, no, no, we're celebrating this together because everyone knows about the Panthers. It's about the teamwork and that buy-in mentality. And I think everything about the celebration showed that from that very first moment to the new guys, the guys who haven't won it before. And then as it went to the veterans, because I'm like, wow, Bobrovsky and Reinhart haven't had it yet. But then you kind of understood why. And you could see how much they appreciated it even more in a different way than just the pure excitement of it. It was, it took us all of this to do it again. And you saw that. And I think for guys like Marchand, he looked so elated. And you go, it has been what, 14 years since he's lifted that cup and he has lost it in between, that I just think you saw a different type of appreciation from those guys. It was an untraditional way to do it. But I also think that's cool too because sometimes you see the first guys come out and do their lap and then everyone kind of fades out by the end of it. Like no, you're staying to see the Verhaeghes of the world do it. But first, here's Nate Schmidt who's never done it before, who just missed it. His teams, he leaves his teams and then they win. So like to see that first, I think that it was very different, but it was very well done altogether.
Yeah, Sarah, I was going to ask you exactly that. By like waiting till the quote unquote stars went last, you kind of ensured that you were getting pops like late in the celebration process, if you will. And again, I don't know if I have the words for it. I don't, it kind of felt like dad energy, like watching the second time guys like watch the first time guys skate around. But like, did you feel anything specific or different or unique about this celebration for this team, or was I just maybe seeing things that I don't usually see because I'm running around doing 18,000 different things?
No, yeah, it's like act like you've been there before and they actually have, you know what I mean? Like nobody knows how they're going to react the first time they win the cup, and then having the luxury of doing it the next year too, and having what you did, maybe what you'd want to do differently this time in your head is like it's a pretty good luxury to have.
Yeah,
And
it's,
wait,
oh,
this
go
is
ahead.
sorry, it's two times straight at home too, and I think that's
Yeah,
different too.
yeah.
Had it
Yeah.
been Edmonton last time, and then
Oh,
this time you just saw the pure joy and excitement as if it was your first cup, I would have been like, I totally get that too, right? Or, we've seen it where it's like you're winning it in a pretty empty building versus a full stadium. Like there's a total difference I think we've noticed over the years. To do it twice at home too, I think changes the vibe a little bit for you too.
yeah, that's
Straight to
a,
the elbow room. Like just walk over.
which did you see? Did you see Kachuk's tweet where he
Yeah.
acknowledged it? That
Yep.
was fantastic. It's so good. So good. So let's go to that too then. So my mind like literally melted. I put this in our group chat when Matthew Kachuk just casually happened to share that his adductor had been torn off the bone. And for people who don't know, those are some of the muscles that are on the inside of your thighs that help you bring your legs in towards the center of your body. So kind of crucial to skating. And then also had a hernia issue on the same side, which I am not a doctor, people, but I am a certified personal trainer. And like that's usually correlated that because he's compensating for the adductor, you then tear your core structure open. I don't know how the man was standing, so my mind was erased. But let's talk about the handshakes of it all. There was shots of Paul Maurice. I don't know if he was trying to keep Chris Knobloch from going through the line, but
The
Knobloch,
pointing, right?
yeah, the Knobloch did anyway. And even though Knobloch did, one of his players did not. Evander Kane, who acted like a literal child in the final minutes of the game, going after Kachuk, was assessed a game misconduct, left the ice as he needs to do, and most players usually do. However, in a Stanley Cup final, does not come out and go through the final handshake line. Sara, is that okay? And what did you think of the handshakes overall? Should the coaches have gone through? Do we care if one did and one didn't?
Like Maurice can lift the cup, but he can't shake the hand of Rod Brindamore. That was bizarre to me. You can't tell. I know he didn't do it with Toronto either. That was short-sighted of him, though. Like I love the guy, and I think he's such a unique and special thinker in this game. But I think he thought a little too hard on that one. But Evander Kane, you're a piece of trash. I don't know. Like I don't know how else to put that. Like, oh, I'm glad he lost. That's all I have to say about that.
Honestly, listen, I hard agree. Shayna, I mean, listen, a lot goes uncalled in playoffs, particularly the final, and there were no power plays in this final game six. But nonetheless, here it is, Evander Kane going after Matthew Tkachuk because of the context. I mean, everyone's saying, oh, they have a long history, da 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 da. Because of the context, it looked like a pouty, like I said, child just being pissed off and not being able to control themselves or their emotions. There was going to be nothing gained by what he was doing. That wasn't going to change the outcome of the game. It wasn't going to get his team a power play at that point or anything of that nature. Thoughts on, in all seriousness, Evander Kane choosing not to come back out?
I think it was big loser energy from start to finish from him. This is a guy that took, I think, 9 minor penalties in the series. I think five of them were in the first period. You look at where things went south for the Oilers, and I'm not going to say here, had the Oilers started games differently, they would have won this series, right? Like I picked the Panthers to win this series. Um, but you look at kind of the way some games spiraled out with the power plays, and you go, well, if Vander Kane didn't do something undisciplined and take penalty after penalty, especially so early in the game to set the tone that way, maybe you are a little bit in a different position. So that context makes it so much worse, in my opinion. I just think he's someone that I get it, the Panthers play a way that's frustrating. I get it, they're super physical. They walk the line, they blow past the line for fuck's sake. There's no if fans or butts around it. We all know that's the way that they play. And if you're the Panthers, you should push it until someone tells you not to. But like, I get you're going to be frustrated by that, but that's not the time or place to do it, in my opinion. I'm going to get one last dirty move in because I'm salty that we're losing this game by this much. And it's like, yeah, maybe if you were better in this series, it wouldn't have been the case. Everything about it, coming from him especially, it just was very sour to me. And I get emotions are running high, but I think one, the conversation would be very different if we were saying these were women on the ice, right? Like
Yeah.
men are so emotional about it. Sometimes it's so funny to me because it's like, oh, this one did this or this player's crying. I feel like if it's a North American player, it's like they're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. He didn't come out for the handshakes at the end of the day. This is what makes a series kind of special, right? We want to kill each other for 7 games and then we're going to shake each other's hands. That's what you do. Get out of the locker room and be a human being.
Sarah, there's one other narrative that was, depending on which side you're on, a fun twist to this cup, and that is Corey Perry, who does in fact have a Stanley Cup, has now lost the last 5 finals he has been a part of. And so the joke remains that if you sign Corey Perry, no matter how good you are, you're basically guaranteed not to win it all. 5 straight, 5 of 6 finals he has lost. This is a player that had so many issues, or an event of issue, that he was kicked off a Chicago Blackhawks team 2 seasons ago. Edmonton, again, just seems to be fine with picking up whomever, signs him and brings him on. He did have his moments of contributing to this team on the score sheet, but was this a little bit of additional karma for the Oilers when it's Corey Perry who's on your squad?
Yeah. Look, I don't know where this falls on the insensitivity level, but I saw a TikTok this morning and it was like, you know how when the losing team like they make hats and stuff before and then they
Yeah.
donate it to like poor kids or whatever when the team loses. It's like the little kids in Africa who they think Corey Perry is, and it was like Tom Brady. So that's what I have to say about that. I feel it's not even karma about him because I do think whatever he did, it seems like I don't know. I'm not getting into that. Not today, Satan. But I think it's karma for not getting a goalie. All you had to do was get a goalie. Like I don't understand. And it's Ken Holland. So and it's Bowman. I don't know.
Yeah.
More karma for that in my eyes.
All right, so let's get into it. Sarah brings up a good point. And so, listen, it is very clear that Skinner is not the goaltender of the future. What was it? Goal 2 and goal 3. Goal 3 was from I know, the 3. 2 I didn't love, and 3 was just, you can't let that in no matter what's happening defensively in front of you. Goaltending isn't where it's going to be, but until basically garbage time, Edmonton did not have a single goal in this game. Not a single goal. And they get one goal from everyone's choice, Podkolzin, in, again, garbage time. Shayna, I think it's easy to point to goaltending. It certainly needs fixed. But what are the biggest issues facing Edmonton? What did you see happen in this series? And was it more of what Florida was effective at doing, or where Edmonton still isn't where they need to be?
No, I think it's definitely a mix of both because the Panthers are such an aggressive team. I mean, like I watched that game and I'm thinking Evan Bouchard never look at that tape again.
Yeah,
Oh,
Throw it away and hope the Oilers never see it again. But as much as I am thinking that, and I think he had a god awful game, and that's what you're gonna remember, right? It's the same.
right.
Bring it back to the Leafs. It's the Mitch Marner of it all. It doesn't matter what you do all postseason. It's what you do in that elimination game. And now there are all these conversations of is Marner a dog? Can he get $14 million? That conversation is going to happen with Evan Bouchard now. But as much as that's true, I also think the Panthers are so aggressive in the way that they play that they pressure you into making these mistakes. That forecheck was on point last night. So it really challenged the Oilers and it challenges the best teams, right? This is not one team that's getting hung up on it. It's 4 this year. It's 4 last year. It's 3 the year before that. That's their strategy. But I think you could see that there were holes on the Oilers. Goaltending is one of them, right? There's no doubt about it. And I think here I would have pulled Skinner after goal 2 or 3 because unlike the Ottinger and Hellebuck situations, to me, I get it, Skinner is technically your guy, but he's not your ride or die backbone
I
where you
might have done
say,
it second intermission. I might have waited till second
yeah,
intermission. Yeah.
yeah, there were 2 minutes to
Which,
go
yeah,
in the
which is
period
3. Yeah,
after the
yeah.
third. Yeah, it 100% agree, right? And go in and hope Picker can give you the spark like he did 2 games ago, even though he's not perfect. My bigger issue isn't the goaltending, it's what they did in front of him on both ends of the ice. Game 5 in particular, the Oilers could not get to the middle of the ice at all. They had 3 really good chances, and just from the whole scoring chance area, it was like barren. And then the Panthers just drive right to the middle. So that's where they fell short. Like if you're gonna have this goaltending increase, and it was established that's what you're gonna have, you need to be rock solid in front of them. And you can't have it that it's yes, if they had Zach Hyman, it's different. I think they probably convert on some of the chances Perry doesn't. But you look at it and go, now your entire depth chart is that thrown out of sorts because you don't have the forward depth. Your defense, you don't have the answers to fix it, right? Throwing in Troy Stetcher works against Vegas. It's not against the Panthers. They're too good. So you just saw like every single hole there that was in front of the blue paint, that the goaltenders were so exposed that I don't think that they were ever going to be up to the task. But if they had that support, this is a totally different conversation.
And Sarah, to that point too, I think one thing that there were two things kind of at play here, right? So Connor McDavid in his post-game comments said, we just kept trying to do the same thing and it wasn't working. But at the same time, I felt like Edmonton was never settled into some of what Shayna's saying, but also there were injuries, of course, to Zach Hyman, et cetera. We know Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was not at full strength, but I never felt like Edmonton had consistency. They kept jumbling stuff up. They kept trying different things. They switched goaltenders. And we can explain all these things in the moment, but I almost felt like that disorganization hurt them. What do you see as the issues for Edmonton and why they lost this series?
Yeah, I think we can go over and over and over about all the minute things, but I think the coaching, it's kind of like two sides of the same coin. Like when he makes adjustments and it works out, it's great. But you kind of try to reinvent the wheel when you are doing too much. You put Troy Stetcher in, which I was on board for and I wanted to happen. But in retrospect, it's like you should have let him cook a little bit more, like before you got to the Stanley Cup final. You know what I mean? Like everybody needs more reps in. That's why these Panthers are so like battle tested. And that's why like when they kind of took their foot off the gas in the last moment of the regular season, it was like NBA-esque. And I said that at the time too. It's kind of like, all right, let Matthew Tkachuk rest. Let's see what the depth has here and like what moves you can make or whatever. And it's just like, yes, they're injured, but every team goes through injuries. You had Matt Tkachuk playing on what you said, which is like, I can't even comprehend this. You have Ekholm out, and he was such the most important piece, arguably, of this. Oh, wait, Ekholm is on the Oilers. Hello, hello, hello.
Ekblad was out for a little bit.
Yes, yes, hello. I mean, they were fine without him, but then you just get Seth Jones. You literally, the way Bill Zito managed this roster, it's like Forsling wasn't great this series, I'll say. I don't think he was. And they were fine. You know, like it's just, they have so much depth. They have every position in. And it's, you look at the Oilers, they don't have that. So I don't know. Like they weren't able to withstand kind of injuries. And it's like when McDavid and Draisaitl go cold, or when Barkov is able to contain them, you're kind of screwed.
No, I want to add to what you said though, with the coaching and the timing of the adjustments,
Yeah.
right? We compliment teams when they lock up their playoff spot and go, okay, now let me see what I have. Like let me make sure I have options, right? I think if you're making those adjustments in rounds 1 or 2 or 3, like sure, right? Like you can look at it and be like, I get it. It's a different opponent. You might have to make adjustments in games 1 or 2, right? Be like, okay, you know what? Turtle matches up better to the Connor Brown line. Let's go with that and free up this one. You kind of figure it out earlier in the series, right? And you can make those tweaks and changes. But I think if you're still tweaking and changing every other game of the Stanley Cup final, you might have yourself an issue. Like
Yeah.
you look at the
Exactly.
Like,
Panthers and the number, right? The sheer volume. The Panthers did what? They changed out their fourth line. They switched for Hagee and Rodriguez a few games. But that's kind of it, right? Like it's not much else that's different versus Edmonton having to change every line, every pair. And yes, you're adjusting to deal with the Hyman injury, but if you're doing it at this point, maybe you're doing something wrong.
So let's go to another key part. I mean, again, there was so much focus, and rightly so, on what the Florida skaters were doing so well, as we've talked about. Like, I want to talk about the right context for Sergei Bobrovsky, right? Because listen, with all due to Brian Boucher, someone needs to do a really good in-depth thing on Sergei Bobrovsky's journey, because
yeah.
Boosh last night is like, oh yeah, when I was in Philly with him, I could tell. And I'm like, dude, Bobrovsky got traded for spare parts to Columbus because Philly didn't think he was worth anything. And then he worked with Ian Clark in Columbus, which, P.S., by the way, that's where he got his two Vezinas. Then he goes to Florida where he sucks because he cannot play against the lateral attack. And he somehow is able to adjust his game. I personally think, while I don't think he was the Conn Smythe winner, I think that that was rightly given to whom it should, but maybe Marchand in the conversation. I think because so much else was going on, Sergei Bobrovsky was not necessarily lauded for how important he was, particularly when Edmonton would push, especially in the last two games. But Sergei Bobrovsky has not always been this good, people, and he has had to
No,
adjust
literally.
his game 8,000 times. Sara, what is the context we should give to Bob in this specific Stanley Cup run?
Well, it's funny because Scott Wheeler, who I know sometimes he has some bad takes. We love you, Scott, but he was had a decent take today when he said, "Okay, Bobrovsky's a Hall of Famer, right?" And everybody was responding like, "He's always been a Hall of Famer or whatever." And it's like, no, he actually had a lot of career struggles leading
Yes,
up to where he is now. I think the first cup sealed his Hall of Fame,
100%.
and I think the second one solidifies it, if that makes sense. But of course, I mean, it goes to show he wasn't perfect by any means during this cup run, right? But he had a bounce back mentality after probably all he's been through. You know what I mean? Like he's still here. He might as well just make the next save. You know what I mean? Like there was something to be said about that attitude and like the way the team responded around him too. And like he'd have a bad save. It was like something about they'd respond in 1 minute with a goal. I have to look up the stats, but they were like one of the most bouncy back teams, resilient teams ever. And then he'd make the next save. So Skinner just like completely lacked that.
Shayna, to Sarah's point, I didn't love Bob's start yesterday. I didn't think his first period was exceptional by any means. I thought he had some key saves at key times, to use a very standard cliche, but I was nervous. I was texting with someone about the game, even though the Panthers had the lead 2-0, and I was like, I still need to see a little bit more from Bob to really think that Edmonton can't come back from. And I'm like, and here's what's frustrating about this to me. In my opinion, it's far more interesting to tell the whole actual story of Bobrovsky. He hasn't always been great. That's what makes it interesting. Shayna, what's your context for Bob in this playoff? And I'm still going to call him Bob, even though Florida's decided he's Bobby now, whatever the hell that's all about.
No, 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 we're not doing that. It's Bob. No, I agree because I think the whole story is so important because this was someone who had those playoff demons to the point where they carried past Columbus. And I think that's the part that gets lost in it too, right? Those early years in Florida when they were losing to Tampa Bay in the playoffs, there was one playoff, if I remember correctly, they had Drieger and Spencer Knight both playing over Bob.
Yep,
That year that they went to the Stanley Cup final, Bob was not the starter day one of the postseason. It was Alex Lyon who came in
yeah,
relief of him in the regular
correct.
season when he was sick or hurt and they let him start because he played better at that point, right? They went out and made sure they still had as good as he was and showed, okay, maybe my demons are gone. The next year, they still had a very good goalie behind him in Stolars to know if he falters in the postseason because he has one good year and a history of bad, they have someone else. So it's weird to me, like last night, to hear Wayne Gretzky point out that Dale Talon signed him when everyone shit on that contract when it happened
It was
for
a
good
terrible
reason.
contract when he signed
Terrible.
it.
And now saying,
Yeah.
well, he's underpaid. We're not rewriting history here, okay?
Right.
Even it's not it. I think Bobrovsky deserves all of the credit in the world for improving how he plays when it matters the most. We're going to be talking about it for a long time, I think, especially as you watch other goalies like Connor Hellebuck with similar struggles, right? And see how they can take it upon themselves and how the team around them and the coaches can help support him in the right way to get him to the level he should be in the playoffs. But this was not an overnight transformation. And I do agree with you. Like last night, at the beginning, he wasn't perfect. I think I was waiting for him to have a game that he stole in this series. And I don't think he truly had that. But
That's a
I
great point.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, like
He stole
he
some
had.
periods, I'll say. Like
That's just
that's
it.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
first periods before last night that
Yeah.
I thought the Oilers were coming in hot with like these rush chances from McDavid and Connor Brown and Draisaitl's coming up with good shots too. And you're seeing Bob have these incredible first periods, and sometimes we forget about them because the Panthers went up 3-0, so you're focusing on the goal, like the goals scored, not the goals that aren't allowed. And yes, in some games the Oilers are fighting back and score effects come into play and just overall like mentality is probably hard to keep a 3-0 lead for 60 minutes, but like he was keeping his team in there, that they were in a position to take the lead. And when they needed him to shut it down, he's shutting it down. He's shutting it down in overtimes too. Like,
Yeah.
I think he had some really good stretches this postseason, was a huge part of their success. But like, let's not forget how he got here.
Yeah. And again, I think that's a far more interesting story than really good goalie, always good goalie. Like it's far more compelling the other way because how does he become this new iteration and then this new iteration? Like that, whatever. I don't know.
It's something to learn about a position we don't know
Yes.
enough about, right? Like Jake Ottinger now, apparently the Oilers are a Jake Ottinger killer per Peter DeBoer. Okay, so how is he gonna get pet? Like that's gonna
Right.
be. I want to see it when he gets to the Stanley Cup one day. That it's because he goes through the Oilers and gets past those demons. Just like for Bob, he had to get through Tampa Bay, and look, he's done it. He's done it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're leveling up by beating things that beat you in the past. That is the journey. That's what it's all about. And when it's about, I swear, a North American fucking skater, we're going to talk about it all day and night. But if it's a European player or goalie, we just like our minds go blank.
Well, and also I would like to, can we stop with the, oh, you gotta beat them high. Look, the majority of the goals in the NHL are scored high. On all goalies, that is the most vulnerable spot to shoot is high blocker or high glove. And most goalies are vulnerable high glove. So it's not like one specific goalie's
If
weakness,
they were
but
shooting low for a full game and then they scored too
we'd
high
have
and you
no
went,
no
oh,
goals.
maybe they need to make an adjustment, you could say, okay, look, maybe they're doing that. Maybe he's too strong down low. Like that. But I feel like the narrative just comes up because it's convenient.
So let's go into another key player. And Sara, of course, I'm going to go to you for your thoughts first because you have always made sure to share a nuanced take on this individual. And that is Brad Marchand, who comes over to Florida at the trade deadline. And I was listening to the Halford and Bruff show this morning and just some really interesting points too about how it's not just what Marchand did on the ice, which was spectacular. He came in second in Conn Smythe votes for the best player, the most valuable player in the playoffs. But it's also the whole transition of him as a human. First, his family doesn't come with him to Florida because obviously this right now is a short-term gig. And he also goes from captain of a massively popular and viewed franchise where he's a big time guy and the voice to where he's a third line player in a team with an established culture and he fits in and he is beloved so much by a team that used to hate him that when he is handed the cup the rest of his teammates are literally doing the bow down sign as he skates around with the cup. Can you put into context this Brad Marchand journey at Florida? Take that whichever direction you want because I know you understand and know the player well.
Yeah. I feel like I've been thinking a lot about his Players Tribune article from 2018 when he's talking about he'll do whatever it takes to win. How many people actually mean that? He means that. And I think the evolution of his role has changed a lot. And I also think about something Paul Maurice said. So like where do I collect my thoughts? But oh, when I was in Edmonton after I think game 2, yeah, Maurice is talking about Marchand and he's like, after 2006, the rules changed in the lockout where it's like more younger guys that are more skilled and like smaller guys were getting drafted. And it was kind of like with the way they play, like Brad Marchand's 5'9", it's like you have to be more skilled and that lets you have more longevity with your game because it's not the wear and tear, right? Like he's not beating people up, but he's still being that pest. And that's so unique and like transcendent over the years. It's part of why he's able to have the impact that he still has. It's also because of his will to win and the way that he is able to evolve in any role. Like even when Bergeron retired, he steps up and he takes more of a role than he ever had on the Bruins and does like flourishes in the role. And he becomes less about the licking, the immature stuff, the slew foots, and it's more about scoring a goal because he needed to. Maybe he thought he needed to do other stuff. And to some degree he did while like the skilled players were doing that. But now when he needed to be a skilled player, he kind of honed in and did that.
Shayna, I found myself actually willing for a Marchand goal last night. And I would suggest to you that now, granted, there was a 4-goal performance by another spectacular player, but I would suggest that if
Wow.
Marchand had scored even 1 goal last night, maybe he does end up with the Conn Smythe votes. What's your take on Marchand and what he did for the Panthers?
Yeah, that's my Conn Smythe winner this year, 100%. And it's no disrespect to Sam Bennett.
100%.
I think the fact that the Panthers' third line was as dominant as it was, and credit to Lucian and Lundell too,
Yeah,
absolutely, right? Because
100%.
they have been good in past postseasons. They were very good last year as well without Marchand, but I think he just took them to this next level. Um, he was like the key to their success, right? Because you look at it when Barkov wasn't scoring in round two, when the series was in Toronto, they changed the matchups when the series went to Florida and put Marchand on Matthews, and he didn't score as much after being a terror in Toronto and scoring a ton because it freed up Barkov and Reinhart to do their thing, which sometimes you just need to do to get them going so they can like keep playing their shutdown role, but now you have like the offensive confidence too. And I think that being able to play that matchup game because he played top competition this year in Boston, I think was so huge for them. The other part of it is most teams when he's not playing those big minutes, they don't have the depth to go up against the third line. That isn't just gonna like push you a little. They're going to dominate and win their minutes. I think their goal differential, his at least for the end of the postseason, 5-on-5 is 21-7. Like that is
That's
huge,
insane.
Yeah.
right? And he does a little of everything. And I think those little characteristics, if you don't have the goals in Boston, it's you're not taking note of it. And the team was so bad around him. But this is someone he's always been an elite penalty killer, right? He's great on the power play. He's great at even strength on both ends of the ice. He makes these key plays to facilitate what his teammates do. And then he could also have that highlight reel goal, like he's cutting to the middle past Evra and cutting through two defenders, like he's doing game five, which was
Hmm.
his best game in terms of game score this postseason,
That
tied
goal was
with,
gorgeous.
yeah, and that's tied with his game seven against the Leafs. It's like, here it is, the pressure's up, and he goes, okay, let's pour it on. And I think as much as it's a credit to the Panthers for scouting what he can still do despite his surroundings, because, and, estimating that he'd fit there, he walks into this locker room and completely buys in, like you were saying, captain of the team, coming in a different role. You're joining, you're not even playing to start because he's injured. And he just fully bought in and becomes one of the guys, which he didn't need to be. He could have just been like a depth player and it would have been fine.
He's
Like
got
he comes,
Barkov eating ice cream.
Mhm.
like, I love it. Everything about it. The vibes are, and that's someone who has been there before on both sides of the table too and knows like what it takes to lose, what it takes to win, and has that motivation. I love it for him.
Let's switch sides now and talk about the Edmonton Oilers. I was trying to switch back and forth between US and Canadian broadcasts last night because I wanted to hear some sound. I still haven't been able to go through a ton of Edmonton sound, but I think even before the Amazon special this past off season, I think we all felt the hunger and the massive disappointment from Edmonton. And of course, the scores were much more close in last year's final, and Edmonton has that massive push to come back from 3 games down. This year feels different to me. And we already talked a little bit about McDavid's comment of we just kept trying to do the same thing and it never worked. But they almost seem to accept their defeat this year. And that, if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, that concerns me. And I can't remember who shared this, but no team has come back from losing a championship twice to then win the championship in a third go round. And we hear teams talk all the time how it's just impossible to get to a final in the first place. Sara, vibe check on the Edmonton Oilers. Is the window starting to close, regardless of who's on their roster or who may not be?
I mean, what we've learned is that you can't really ever close a window on a team, but like they've had so many opportunities. Like I don't think they deserve to be in their window anymore after like they had opportunities to tweak the team and they kind of like were called out for not getting another goaltender. And that's like there's so many, like you said, there's only so many chances to even get to a Stanley Cup final, and it's just kind of like doing a similar thing twice when you get there. It's tough. I mean, of course, the Panthers are a nightmare opponent, but it's like you're just not going to have an easy opponent. That's not going to happen. So, I mean, you wonder what's next with McDavid and stuff with his contract coming up, but I don't know, man. You got to think he's feeling pretty fed up.
Shayna, what's your take on Edmonton? Because the Oilers also did say they thought that the Panthers were better this year, and of course, again, we want to acknowledge that the Oilers were not 100%, but neither were the Panthers, right? I
Yeah.
don't think Zach Hyman, respectfully, and we are lovers of Zach Hyman on this pod, but like I don't think he was the difference between a Stanley Cup win and a Stanley Cup loss and how this series played out. Are you concerned? I expected more, even just more emotion in post from Edmonton than we got. They seemed resigned to their fate. Like I said, what do you think, Shayna?
Yeah, I could see that. I think the Panthers are a tough team because say you get through 3 rounds, and round 1 was a little bit tough, but I think 2 and 3 they got through with like flying colors, and they had the depth clicking at the right pace, the defense, the team defense, that commitment was better, and that's helping the goaltending. Like they were just firing on all cylinders to the best of that roster's ability, which had its limitations. But you get to the Panthers. They wear you down. They grind you along the boards. We saw that from game 1, which, yes, Edmonton won, but there are stretches where the Panthers are just going at them and playing to their strengths. And it's like you could see where that's going to be a problem later in the series, right? Like that's how the Panthers just control things and how they got here. So I felt like after that third goal, ironically enough, considering the Oilers have picked up the pace multiple times in the series, going down 3-0, but they looked defeated on that
Yeah,
shift. Yeah,
exactly.
that one goal, the reactions of the defenders, I don't want to say quitting on the play early, but if the shoe fits, it just it was a bad look, and it was so different from like the vibe going into the series of we're not as emotional and we're here for business and all of that. It was like, okay, wait, like you're onto something. You're totally onto something, and I agree with you. Hyman's not going to win you the series. I think he forces a game 7 and makes this a more even
Sure.
battle, so you don't have those two super super lopsided losses in the middle. But it was just kind of odd, right? Because the Panthers are a better team than last year. There is absolutely no doubt about it. But the Oilers had the potential to be, and I feel like some of it just didn't work out. And then when it felt like they finally channeled it the right way, it just didn't hold. It was odd how it kind of came apart after, especially after game 1, right? Like you're in this series. And
Right.
then even after game 4, you're tied. I felt like it should have been different. So I don't know if this one like hits harder or they just, you need a minute to process, but I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I've not been able to fully digest post-game commentary from the Edmonton side. Is there anything either of you guys have seen that stands out that we haven't discussed or that because again, I didn't see everything that came out yet. There doesn't have to be just asking.
I have something else on the Panther side, not the Oilers side, because I didn't see the coverage.
Take it.
Okay. I'm going to like preemptively say if Sam Bennett takes less money to stay in
And
Florida with the
Panthers.
Panthers in with listen, if Sam Bennett takes less money to stay with the Panthers, I think the taxes are a part of the conversation, but it's secondary to the fact that he probably wants to win. And this whole thing just is annoying me. Like, what if he takes 7-by-7 to stay with the Panthers? I think there's two reasons why. One, you're on a team that has shown a complete and total commitment to win, and they're not doing it in the same cutthroat way as Vegas, oddly enough. Like, I feel like they're committing to their guys, and if you're just a secondary piece, you're coming into it probably for a short term, and then they're gonna just keep interchanging what they need to do. So if you're viewed as a core guy, I think that there's a different vibe versus Vegas on that. The other part of it is they helped him be the best version of himself. Like he was struggling
Right.
in Calgary before they moved him, and he went to a team that helped him become this player. And as this player, he's helped them build their identity. And everyone's so quick to be like, well, if he signs there, it's because he doesn't need to take as much money. No, at some point when you're in his position, you might just say, the difference between 7 million and 9 you
Right.
might not really give that much a shit about if you're going to have rings that are going to fly forever, like flags fly forever, and that's what you're aiming for at this point. And it's like this weird narrative that is just so frustrating to me that players might like the Sam Reinhart contract is a steal. It's an absolute steal, but I could see why you'd say screw it because that's someone who has experienced playing on a team that it's miserable, right? Like he didn't seem like he had a good time in Buffalo. It doesn't seem like Bennett did in Calgary either. And I think just the quality of the experience from the amenities that the Panthers offer, right? The practice facility and the lifestyle that they have there, plus an ownership group that is very committed to this team and being good on the ice. Like there's something to that everyone should be taking away from say the California teams, they could learn something. And it's not just they can't offer as much, whatever. The quality of life. There's a reason players are willing to sign in Anaheim and stay there even though they're a bad team because the lifestyle is there. I don't know. It just all frustrates me.
Well, and also like first of all, this whole tax argument in my quest to like fight for the sustaining of actual critical thinking people, like, come on. Like, first of all, Florida is not the only no state tax state in the United States. California, Arizona, Washington State. There are multiple states, Nevada, that do not have state taxes. And all of their,
California does. You know,
California does?
California's like 13%. They're like the highest one. Otherwise, I
I
wouldn't have
thought they
corrected
didn't
you.
have state tax.
No, they do.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
That's why Frank Petrano's hello, my brain, my brain cell right
You're
now.
fine.
That's why Frank Petrano's contract was structured the way it was. Like there's ways around
That's
it. The
right.
point
That's
is there's
right.
ways around it though.
Okay, so here we go. I've actually used Google because I want to be factual. Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, I forgot Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. So, people, pro teams in those states are not automatically successful. That's the bigger point. Like to say that it's simply the state tax. And while the Florida practice facility, which I saw for the first time this year, is gorgeous, their arena not gorgeous, respectfully. So it's a very special chemistry. And when Brandon Montour came to the Kraken, one of the things when we asked him what he remembered about winning a cup with the Panthers, it was all about the group of guys, right? So like this isn't a simple formula that someone's going to go somewhere or stay somewhere simply because of the money. Some people will, but not everyone will. And the state tax argument is so lazy, it drives me nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brad Marchand, you make a great point. He was saying at Four Nations, Bennett and Reinhardt like talked up the group so much and that it made Marchand sign off on the trade at the end of the day. It's because of the culture, like with the guys and like the owners now willing to do things like the practice facility and like put money into the team. So there's pros and cons to signing with any team.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about one other wrinkle, and I'm sure this will be a hashtag narrative in the offseason. And I think Dave Amber is the person who shared this on Halford and Bruff this morning. But
Guess who is going on tomorrow? Me. Not
oh,
on their show, but on Drence's show. So
oh,
your favorite
nice.
Hell
station.
We
yeah.
love Drancer. We love to say hi
Yes,
to say hi to him and Jamie for all of us. We love them.
I will. I will.
Um, David Amber was saying that there has with the if you look at the teams that have won cups, they haven't had players on a salary above 10 million. And Bob is the one that's closest, so not above. So there's going to be some interesting narrative. It might seem on again, even though the cap is going up, how you manage the cap in terms of your roster construction if you want to actually win a championship. Thoughts?
I wrote about this last year
Well,
actually,
there
and I
you
want to
go.
pull it up, but um the percentage, the cap hit percentage is different. There's been inflation. Um, so I think that's one part of it. The other part of it is there are te it's different how you tie up your core because for some teams, like you're the Penguins winning back-to-back cups, like you could say the core's three players at the time, right? You could say it's Letang, Crosby, and Malkin and call it a day. For Colorado, it's Landeskog, McKinnon, Ranton, and Makar. It's different than five or six players. Or in the Leafs case, everyone's like, oh, it's the core four, and you can't win. You can win with those contracts. Like I'm gonna find the story to because I have all the numbers broken down in terms of cap hit percentage, but like you can win the Stanley Cup with highly paid players. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. You just need to be smarter with how you spend around that core. Like that is the key. The Panthers are not overcommitting dollars and cents to guys who play on their fourth line. They're fine interchanging it. Brandon Montour wanted a contract that they were not ready to pay for. They let him go. They tried to find a replacement in season, right? They had Adam Boquist as this like cheap option. I thought he was going to excel in that role. He didn't. They found a different option, right? And looked for Seth Jones. Like there's a trial and error to it. And I think that if your core, which for them is a little bigger, is so skilled, you can afford to do it. And that's the difference between them and, say, the Hurricanes, where everyone's like, the system doesn't work and things like that. And that's a different conversation. To me, it's that their core, technically, I look at it as two players, as Slavin and Aho, as these two cornerstones. And it's like, okay, you need a more skilled group, and then you can have those interchanging parts around it, like the Panthers do, versus what they have. And I think with like the Leafs even, it's like they're allocating the money the wrong way around those big guys that the big guys become the focal point when they shouldn't be.
Sarah, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know about this one. I feel like part of it's timing, right? Where it's just like, okay, maybe this guy just hasn't had his biggest contract yet, or blah, blah, blah. But like, obviously, there are the Panthers are the deepest team in the league because they have the most skilled forwards in the league. It's not about like there's no passengers, and part of that is having somewhat affordable contracts. And part of it is like when the Bruins in 2011, people were taking hometown deals or whatever. But like, I don't know if I like this because I want players to be able to get paid however much they deserve or whatever. But I guess there's some truth to it.
We shall see. We shall see. There is
Did you say
one.
passengers
Oh,
because of the Leafs?
well, wait a
No, but
minute.
now I am. Maybe I'm just brainwashed.
I was going to say this is perfect because there is one last take that came out of last night's win because there is one achievement that is bigger than Florida Panthers winning 2 straight Stanley Cups. And that achievement is Leafs Nation's ability to try and overtake the narrative. Shayna, what time is it?
How does it affect the Leafs? Because it always fucking does.
My friends, if you gloriously were fortunate enough to miss this, the new narrative on these streets is that because Florida has won a second time, and because Toronto took them to 7 games, obviously Toronto presented the biggest challenge to Florida and therefore are the second best team, not just in this season's playoffs, but this season. Sara, your thoughts?
Unfortunately, Matthew Tkachuk debunked this myth and said, actually, the Lightning were the hardest team to beat this year. So I think there's something to be, I think literally the Panthers ended up taking their feet off the gas when it came to playing the Leafs because they didn't view them as the biggest challenge. And that is the most pathetic thing of all.
Shayna, your take.
Okay, wait. I want to add because I found it now. When the Penguins won in 2016, it was a 3-player core and the average cap hit percentage was 11.9, which is
Are you trying to detract from the Leafs' time here?
no, but that's more than the Panthers, which last year was
Yeah.
11% was the average like cap hit percentage of their core players.
No,
The
Dave
Penguins
Amber
were
was
more
saying that
expensive.
in support of Edmonton not winning, not against Florida. It was against Edmonton.
No, I know, but I'm saying like I don't agree.
Okay.
Like I don't agree with that one.
Austin
Okay,
Matthews
I kind
says,
of
"How
agree.
dare you?" Go ahead.
Um, yeah, I think Austin Matthews is fine if he can have a team around him. The narrative last night, I was laughing, scrolling through tweets, seeing it. I think that listen, if you're a team, and I know for me, like in years past, being like, okay, if the Rangers got eliminated by X, go win it all, so you can be like, okay, at least you got beat by the best. And
Right.
I think that there's a good lesson in that too. If you got beat by the best, you need to go, okay, how do we beat them next? How do we build you don't want to build your attack for one opponent, but like the Panthers are the best in the league for 2 straight years. How do you outsmart them and outplay them, right? There's something valuable to it. I think you lose the value in that when you start changing the narrative to say you were right there because no, you were not right there. I don't care if the series went 7. I agree. Like, I don't think that they took the Leafs seriously enough and they went into it a little bit lax. And then when they needed to turn it on, that they did. Like, I think the Leafs are lucky it even went 7 games in the first place. Um, and it's not just because Sam Bennett was dirty and this, like,
Yeah.
enough. I just think that it's the wrong takeaway here. If you want your team to be stagnant and stuck in the mud and stuck where they've been forever, have that mentality of the Leafs are right there because there's a huge gap between them and the Panthers and the total control and dominance that they have. But I feel like I don't it's different now because Shanahan's gone, but I'm not sure I trust this group to like know what right takeaways to take from it. I think in years past they've made their like we need to get tougher and do this, and it's like okay, but now you're taking away what makes you special.
Oh, Leafs, never change. We love you so much. All right, there's one last piece of business to cover, and that, my friends, yes, this official little tab of paper is the Too Many Men Cup tracking. If you're new to our friendly journey here, we missed round 1 this year. That's on us, not on you, but it is on us. But if we look at the results, let's go to the final first. As Sara already said, she picked Edmonton in 6 games. So no points for her. Both Shayna and I picked Florida, so we get 1 point for that, but we both said 7 games, so we only get 1 point, which means, and I'm happy to share this for validation because I didn't cheat. Sara, you end with 4 total points on the season cup, on the Too Many Men Cup. Shayna Goldman comes in second with 5, and I after a strong round two, I should say, round two performance, end up winning the Too Many Men Cup with 7 points total. Woo.
Is
Of
that
course
back
he
to
did.
back?
Yep.
It is. Listen.
Oh my God, she's the Florida Panthers. She's our Florida Panthers.
That's me. That's what I got. All right, friends. Anything we missed?
I think we got it all.
Yeah, we'll see how dumb teams are to react. I'm sorry, that unprofessional. We'll see how teams react and how to this situation and what they take away from the Florida Panthers, because it is always interesting to see what teams think are like the lessons and the keys to success and then how to apply it to their own team. So like we'll have a mess of an off season to cover.
Can't wait.
All right, friends. Well, we appreciate you listening as always. We are currently targeting to be back with a pre-draft episode. And then I'm sure we'll come back and cover what goes down, at least in the early phases of free agency. From there on, as you all know, if you've been listening for some time, we do take some time in the summer, but we'll keep you posted on our plans. If we're not in your earbuds or earphones or speakers, you can still connect with us. We are online on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Instagram at 2_much_man. And we are on Blue Sky at 2-much-man. We have pulled our merch store. We will be providing a new vendor shortly. Stay tuned for that. Don't support Teespring. They suck. And more importantly, until we talk again, please try and do something every day, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey is truly for everyone. We continue to wish you a wonderful and happy Pride.
Love you.
Bye.